Alright, I'm back. This guy's been used a couple times. It's probably still fine, but if you go this route, you'll get a feel for how smooth the board gets. Now, you don't have to do this every time. It probably wouldn't hurt. But if it's an extra step that you don't really need to do, why bother? Alright, it's an old block of flex cut gold. It's a very good compound, made for carving, wood carving tools. And according to the manufacturer, it has some abrasives that are down in the 0.5 micron range. I mixed some up with oil and looked at it under a microscope, and it looked to me like most of them probably in the 3 micron range and down, I guess. So we wind up with an edge that's still got some aggressive tooth to it, but pretty refined nonetheless. My experience with this method is that if you want to go finer than that with the same compounds, you can just put them on some newspaper or a leather strap and they'll get just a touch more refined than they are on the board. And I'm going to do this exactly like I did the other side. Start on the back here. I'm not sure how much you can see from the camera, but it's darkening up the wood and the compound real quick. And that's one of the reasons I work the corners first. Not only because this is how I sharpen on a waterstone to even the wear out, but because if I load up all the swarf in the middle, then when I go to do all my finishing back honing passes, I'm working with a bunch of stuff that's all loaded up, and now I'm going to have to change it all around, stir it up, maybe wipe it off even. Or I can just do the beater work, the back bevel stuff, up here on a corner. I'm using a little bit of pressure here. Nothing crazy, but considerably more than I would use either with the black compound or on a stone. And what I'm looking for in this stuff is I want to see a little bit of mobility as I'm working it, but not a ton. I want to be able to see a slurry on the blade. Again, not a ton. If all I see is like a little waxy shine, then I know I've got too much compound, not enough oil. If you nick the board, it's not a real big deal. As long as it doesn't happen right when you think you're done. You're still doing some grinding, it's not a big deal. You're going to be at it for a little bit. You can fix whatever damage might have occurred just by further refining. And I probably should have done a paper cut test coming off the black compound. It's, in my experience, very similar to what you might get with that India stone without doing any post-stropping. So it's pretty toothy. It can just barely maybe cross-cut a piece of newspaper. And it'll certainly shave some hair off your arm and that sort of thing, but not terribly refined. And this guy will take it down pretty quick. Nicking on this side, I better curb my enthusiasm a little here. I have some damage to repair. It's forgiving, it's not that forgiving. Couple backhoning passes. We'll take a quick look and see if there's even a burr there that's visible. There's just the smallest of burr. Anytime you have a loose abrasive that you're working, there's going to be a certain amount of lapping action, like on a water stone, and it will actually attack that burr as it's trying to form. So it doesn't really surprise me if I'm working this and I don't get much more than just a slight roll on the apex where there's a burr that can be removed pretty easily with a variety of methods. Probably just newspaper stropping. Right? Small, invisible to the naked eye. I'm spending a little more time on this. The other thing too is this is all just personal philosophy, you can use a little more pressure on these Scandi grinds because the bevel is so much wider. The amount of pressure is spread out. If this bevel were a third of that size, then the amount of pressure that you could use would be a third of what it in theory could be on a Scandi. Now I'm not pressing 3 times as hard as I normally would, but if I normally would use a featherlight touch, I can certainly put a little more pressure because I'm just working such a bigger surface area. I'll wipe this off real quick and see if we can strap it on newspaper. Which will really tell me if there are any burrs left. Set this aside in case we still need it. My trusty India stone here. I'm just pressing just hard enough to make out the texture of the paper, or the stone underneath the paper, and just kind of feel it's not a lot. I can feel this guy getting sharper. It's getting ready to cut my finger if I slip up here. Let's take a quick look. Very nice shine. There's also a really small burr on this side of the edge, right about here. I don't really want to go back tooth on it, but I don't want to go after it for a long time edge trailing either. I don't want to flip it. It's got to go. The sooner the better. And it is to that point where it's so small and so feathery. You can probably just get rid of it any of a number of ways. I think it was just a little too big for the newspaper. Maybe not. Hopefully not now. Putting the acute factory bevel, it's probably about 22 degrees or so on some of these Scandies with the carbon steel. It can be very challenging to finish the edge off nice, especially if you don't want to use a micro bevel or anything. The edge may very well last longer with one, but it doesn't cut as nice. Smaller knives, I don't intend to beat on it, so just a little EDU knife. I don't do any wood carving. I should. Get a leather apron at some point and try my hand. I think we're there. I can see that it's still a little toothy too. I mean, very little. This is probably comparable to about a 4,000 grit Japanese waterstone. Well, a King waterstone anyway. Maybe a touch under. If King made a 3,000 grit, it'd probably about there. And of course, you didn't do anything if you don't do a paper cut test. That's just coming right off. At anything but an extreme angle, it's going to work pretty good. If we can get it to... And it's got enough tooth to catch it as it rolls, which is really something I like to see. That means this edge is going to do well for a wide variety of tasks, still be pretty refined. It's about as refined as I like to get them. If I were to take some of that flex cut, just rub it on this newspaper now and go over it a few more times just like I have been, finish it up with some plain white, it would probably whittle a hair, maybe even pass a hanging hair test at this angle. Alright, well, thank you very much.